Hey, how's it going, YouTube? This is Rarudo from the Community Matters Cast team, and I want to do a quick deck tech and a couple of rounds with a new standard brew now that Hour of Devastation is live on MTGO. We want to do some fun stuff with these Hour of Devastation cards. So one card that really caught my eye that this deck is built around is the card Imminent Doom, and it's a effectively 3 mana do nothing enchantment, but it comes out on the field with 1 counter every time you cast a spell with converted mana cost equal to the number of counters on Imminent Doom. Imminent Doom gets to ping something equal to the number of counters, and it could go at a creature or a player. So you have Imminent Doom on the battlefield, you play one of your 1-drops, you get a trigger that does an extra 1 damage to either get rid of an X1 or go right to the opponent's face. So Burn seemed like a natural home for Imminent Doom, and this is kind of the simplest execution of this strategy, but one that I think will be a lot of fun, is a deck with just a lot of 3s, a lot of 2s, and a lot of 1s, so that you're not getting a ton of value on your Imminent Doom, but you're also not being too greedy with the plan. So the plan isn't to make sure you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ad infinitum, even though that would be sweet with Imminent Doom and could definitely be a deck. This is more of a pared down burn deck that just wants to use Imminent Doom to squeak out those extra points of damage. So we'll go through here and we'll look at what all the cards are trying to do in this deck. When it comes to creatures, you basically have creatures that care about burn, because this is a good old-fashioned burn deck where you're throwing your instants and sorceries at your opponent's face. You really want to burn them out of the game. So Soulscar Mage, Monastery Slow Spear, has the prowess to get in that extra damage when you're firing off your burn, and its ability is pretty relevant at shrinking and getting rid of creatures Mono Red normally has trouble with. So that's your only creature 1-drop. The rest of the 1-drop slot is that burn. So Galvanic Bombardment to deal with creatures, and Shock that you mostly want to throw at your opponent's face. These are the cards that you want to play in order to get your Imminent Dooms rolling, right? So oftentimes you want to have a couple of 1-drops in your hand so that you can curve out normally, but then also once you get your 3 down, go back and then play a Bombardment or a Shock or a Mage to start getting the Imminent Doom train rolling. Then at your 2s, you have 2 playsets of creatures. You've got Firebrand Archer, so another new addition from Hour, and I love the art on Firebrand Archer, super cool. And this is probably another good inclusion in the Pauper version of this deck, as is Thermo Alchemist. So these serve basically the same function. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery in Alchemist's case, or any non-creature with the Archer, so that makes the Archer actually even work with our Dooms, which is kind of a fun synergy. Anytime you cast those, these 2 cards will help you get in a little bit of extra damage. And also at the 2-drop slot, Incendiary Flow, for some more burn that goes at your opponent's face and can deal with tough creatures in a pinch. Also in this slot, which might be a little bit of chaff, I'm not sure, maybe a better version of this deck runs extra land and doesn't run this main deck, but Pyrohelix, another source of fairly efficient burn that goes at the opponent's face. Something that not a lot of people are running, but could still be reasonable. This is taking the place of a Braid in this deck. I wasn't able to get my hands on any Braids. At the time of this recording, the Hour set has only been available on Magic Online for a couple of hours, so Braids are still kind of hard for me to find. That said, I think the Pyrohelices still might even be better than a Braid since they get to go at the opponent's face. The only edge a Braid really has is that extra point of damage and that modal utility, which might make it a better sideboard card than the one of Pyrohelix. Speaking of sideboards, there are Pyrohelices in the sideboard, so you can bring them in those tough matchups where you really just need to kill your opponent as fast as you can. So of course you got the Dooms at 3. Then you've got Sin Prodder. Sin Prodder is another pet card of mine that just hasn't found a home. In this deck, it's trying to do its impression of Bob, the Red Bob, or Rob, right? But realistically, you're running a lot of 3s and 2s, and even these Bedlam Revelers, so you could get lucky with Sin Prodder doing a lot of damage over the course of the game, or helping you smooth out your draw steps by giving you a little extra advantage. And it's just a great 3-mana trigger for Imminent Doom if you get it up to 3 counters. And then Collective Defiance is the other 3-mana burn spell. There's a lot of utility there. Lastly, we have our Burns from Within. Another sort of fun card that I think would be cool in this archetype, because it's an X spell, and X spells synergize really well with Imminent Doom. This can fall at your 1, 2, or 3 drop slot, and it's one of the only ways to get a 4 or a 5 if we ever get Imminent Doom up that big. Go 1, 2, 3, and then cast Burn from Within X3 to get that 4 and squeeze out some extra damage. In the mana base, we've left in room for deserts. I really like the desert synergies. So, bunch of mountains, and then I'm running 3 Ramunap Ruins, again, similar to the Abrades. I just couldn't get my hands on the 4th. I was looking at a bunch of different shops and trying to trade for them. I think this deck can easily run 4, since it's not too much of a problem to your mana base to run these. The Deserts of the Fervent coming in tapped could be the problem, but it doesn't seem like too big of an issue so we ever get flooded, which is unlikely in a 19-land deck, but if cycling could again become relevant. Onto the sideboard, Chandra's Defeat to zap Glorybringers, or in case we're in another red matchup. Sprays, just as sort of a replacement for the bombardments in matchups that the exiling is particularly relevant. The extra Pyro Helixes we mentioned, or Helices as I like to say. You know, gotta be accurate. But yeah, it's extra burn for your opponent's face. I'm not even running the 3rd here, that would make it a full playset. Then we have a playset of Savage Alliances for those token matchups, Go Wide, Oketra's Monument, things like that. And then lastly, another X spell and our sort of substitute for a Braid by Force. So that's where I'm at with this build of Imminent Doom budget burn. And I should mention that this is a budget deck. To put this together, it was only about 5 tickets, which I think is pretty sweet for something that might have the ability to be fairly competitive. So I'm interested to hear what you all think about this list. Let's take it into some standard matches and see how it fares against the new field. Imminent Doom, 5-ticket janky burn. Yes, we would like to play first. This honestly seems keepable to me. You have your payoff in Imminent Doom. You need to hit another land drop. But Thermal Alchemist at 2 is not the worst. And we can save our shock until after we get our Imminent Doom down. Get a little bit extra value off of it. This should be fun. Mono Red is budget player's best friend, and this is certainly no exception, I think. If you're a fan of making sure you throw your burn spells at your opponent's face and hoping you have a way to close out the game, this deck might be for you. But we'll, of course, withhold our judgment until we see how well it fares. So let's just play out our Alchemist. Get some pings in and see if we can hit our land. So our opponent's up to some fun stuff with that Hostile Desert. I like that. So this is probably a matchup where those Sweltering Suns I couldn't run would be extremely good. So it looks like our opponent's up to maybe some form of mono white Go Wide with the Oketra's Monument. That was a very popular deck. Couple of options here. I think we shock the Cult Leader just because it's such a problem card. Take a little bit of pain from our own mana base and get to ping our opponent. This is the type of deck where I think our burn would much rather go at the opponent's face than at a creature. But I feel like I'm scared of that card. It also may have been a better call to save that prowess trigger for when Monastery Slow Spear here could smack in. Opponent having none of it. Okay, they call it free win red for a reason, I suppose. Let's go to the board. So we didn't see much of what our opponent is on. Burn from Within seems replaceable in this matchup since we're going to be going wide. We don't need to pay a lot of mana to burn down one big target. I mean, the main deck strategy seems good. Maybe we go up some of our sweepers, with the Savage Alliances and the Chandra's Pyrohelix being the best of the bunch. This deck being a brew and kind of a clunky as far as mana costs, individual mana costs, it's kind of tough to sideboard this, in my opinion. You don't really want to go down an Incendiary Flow, but I would like maybe another Pyrohelix and one or two Savage Alliances. I'm not crazy about bringing in the 4, although it's a good matchup for it. But the Pyrohelix does a good impression of Savage Alliance at a cheaper cost. So maybe bring in another one of those. That way we have some of those ping down your little guys' strategies. I'm going to cut a Sin Prodder, even though it's one of my pet cards. I'm cutting 2 Sin Prodders. We'll go low on creatures. I love Sin Prodder. I think Sin Prodder is a fun venue to use Sin Prodder in a deck, but it is expensive. It is clunky, and especially in this deck, it's only doing 1, 2, or 3, or of course 0 if there's a land on top. So it's not incredible, but it's just another way to sort of mitigate the fact that with a spell-style burn deck, you're running out of cards in hand really quickly. So Sin Prodder helps with that. The Collective Defiance, I believe, is the name of the red card. That helps with that if you have to wheel. And Bedlam Reveler, of course, helps with that. This deck may want 3 Revelers. So we'll give our opponent some time. So we have the 3 lands. That's the magic number here. So magic that I might be a total miser and save this Soulscar Mage into the Imminent Doom. Certainly a tough sell. Drabin Inspector coming down. I mean, the Soulscar Mage blocks. The Inspector, can we really afford to be this greedy? I think we can't afford to be as greedy as I'd like to be here, but boy do I like greed. So a Braid, of course, an all-star in this matchup, would just be insanely good. I love that the desert synergies are starting to creep into otherwise non-desert decks. That I just find incredibly fun. Ooh, one of my Bolus lands. You'll notice I also have mixed match lands, something I know many of you would rather not see. Well, let's just pass the turn and plan on burning some of my opponent's creatures. So is it Monument? Monument's a big deal. Luckily, we have several sweepers in hand. I guess by several I mean 1. This is not each creature, is it? No. I lied. Don't know what the cards do. Our opponent is cracking his clue, his or her clue, and passing the turn. So worried about the prowess trigger here with the Soulscar Mage. So now greed is the name of the game. So opponent now knows what kind of deck this is. Wonders why I'm running such ridiculous jank. I'm fine trading the Soulscar Mage off for the Militia Captain if that is what is offered here. And we're mono red. Let's get in there. Jam. Plus we've got the backup Soulscar Mage. If we draw into 2-drop, we get 1-drop, 2-drop next turn, double triggering our Imminent Doom, which seems awesome. Seems rad here. So the trade I offered was not taken up. So do we see a Forsake the Worldly or a Cast Out in our opponent's deck, or is that something they take out against this type of strategy? Selfless Spirit is good. And I'm taking 3 here. Oh man. It is possible to be quite greedy, but I think I fire off this Savage Alliance because it still puts -1 counters on everything here. I can even escalate it. Yeah, this Savage Alliance I can escalate it to get it through the Selfless Spirit even if my opponent sacks it, which is just nuts here. So that seems like the play, even though it doesn't trigger our Imminent Doom, but we have time for that. Hey gang, it's future Rarudo here from when I was editing the videos. I probably won't do this for every punt, but this one was bad. I think I was just so excited about figuring out how good Savage Alliance was in this matchup that I didn't realize the play was obviously to get out the second Imminent Doom and double trigger it with the Soulscar Mage. I could put those pings on the opposing creatures, the X2s, to shrink them down for next turn's Savage Alliance. Whoopsie! So our opponent probably now realizing that the indestructibility didn't stop the -1/-1 counters kill, and if last game's early scoop was an indication, might just be cursing at their computer monitor. And here I am, all proud of myself for making the wrong play. You'll see in the next couple of turns why saving that sweeper was definitely the answer, and it usually is against tokens. Painful. Like the Savage Alliance is more on the board than I thought I would. So let's see what's coming down now. Ooh, some more go wide. Fair enough, opponent. Really making me regret my itchy trigger finger. So an opportunity presents itself. Do I want to cast this? We're going to get to the point where we can start burning the opponent out. I want the Sin Prodder down. And then I'm just going to pass and next turn go Imminent Doom, Soulscar Mage to get the double triggers. And then we'll just start on that plan for a little while here and try to burn our opponent out. Angel of Invention. Ooh, the lifelink on this is going to be a problem. Buffing up the team. I do like what our opponent's about here. I think we just take the hit. Firebrand Archer, opponent can let us draw it or take 2. Thank you, opponent. Or cancel that, I think they took the 2. I guess we're obligated to get rid of this guy. And trigger our Imminent Doom once, and then we'll trigger it again with this creature or player, huh? That certainly makes it a little bit more fun. I was thinking of just burning the opponent with it, but kind of like taking a good block off the table. Our opponent down to 9. We get hit down to 9 if they have another Angel of Invention, or hit down for 9. Deck and Stone the Soulscar Mage. Mages. Seems good. And more fabrications. I really like what our opponent's up to. And we know how incredibly good our Savage Alliances actually are. Yep, and they're worried about him too, so they make one guy very large. That is a fair thing to do. So another Sin Prodder. They let us draw the Sin Prodder. Okay. Hurt a bit by our mana base being what it is, because the ability to go second or 2-drop, 3-drop here would be just nutty. Absolutely nutty. I suppose we're obligated to play this. Cycling it might be better. I think we start going to the opponent's face, dare them to kill us this turn. And if they can't, try to kill them. Veteran burn players in the audience probably questioning my decision making. Pumping up the team. That looks like a kill if I've ever seen it. Now, I can take some degree of damage off the table, but not enough. Onboard trick, just hiding in plain sight. I like that. I like the inclusion of the dunes. I like this go wide strategy the opponent's got. It seems like another fun sort of brew for this format. It may have been right to start throwing spells at the opponent's face. Collective Defiance seemed weaker than I would have liked. Savage Alliances seemed great. This seems reasonable to me. Let's run it on back. Pretty solid hand here, minus the namesake Imminent Doom, which makes this a little bit more fun to rock and roll with. We can get double Firebrand Archers down, start casting spells. That seems powerful. The Savage Alliance is a good bailout. We'll go with the Bolus land first. No one drop for our opponent. Desert of the Fervent. Possible we cycle that away, but I kind of like playing it out with the Ramanep Ruins also in our hand. Just another way to get those last couple of cards worth of value. Firebrand Archer coming down. This deck was, as was my other desert deck, heavily inspired by how much I love limited. Just using good limited cards seems like a great time. So a free clue here from our opponent. I like just playing our second Firebrand Archer. Just gets back to where we were. Makes him feel a little worse about that deck in stone. Here comes the Hostile Desert. I do like what our opponent's on. There's the Monument. Where's a Braid when you need it? But that explains why our opponent was a little afraid of keeping the Firebrand Archer, because it looks like they had to tap out turn 3 for Monument, and now they're going to start playing their guys into a potential Salvage Alliance blowout. Let's get this Alchemist down, and let's draw off that clue. Then we can start playing out our instant sorceries. Selfless Spirit. There's their Wrath Protection. And the Aviary Mechanic. This is a very fun combo. We get 2 of them. I've been a fan of the Oketra's Monument decks. I think they're sweet. Opponent bounces that land and keeps on keeping on. Let's see what we get. Soulscar Mage, absolutely insane with the Savage Alliance. That is the name of the game. We can crack in with the archer. Now, we'd lose the archer no matter how that plays out. We could wait a turn on Savage Alliance to get more value out of it next turn, where we can cast more sides of it. In any case, I like just passing the turn and waiting, because we have the option to spaz out, cast the 3 on it, or just Pyrohelix Shock. So the downside, yeah, we're letting our opponent have more clues off of the Bygone Bishop, but it's not like we could have gotten rid of the Bishop then anyhow, and this way we get still more value off of our alliance as they play out more things. So we'll see how they attack, and this might indicate what we do here. I think I like Pyrohelix Shock and just line up some blocks. The question is, what do we hit with Pyrohelix Shock? Because we wipe the smaller things. Anyhow. It might be more prudent just to Galvic Bombardment here. A lack of familiarity with the deck certainly showing itself. Take the hit. See if our opponent has anything in mind for their end of turn. Just crack the clue. So we make our opponent rebuild. Get our triggers. There goes the board. And we still have Burn in hand. This is the Angel of Invention, yep. So the old rebuild the board in a can strategy here. Well, we get to get in for still a ton of damage and get a bunch of triggers this turn. So why don't we do that and plan on just burning our opponent out somehow. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Get rid of this guy. So let's see here. My dreaded math comes into play. So Pyrohelix represents 4 damage to the opponent. Shock represents 4 damage to the opponent. So do we just have the opponent dead? Seems that way to me. This seems kind of like I was slow rolling the opponent, but it's actually because I didn't do the math. I'll remedy that. There, opponent sees it. Okay. Well, I feel kind of like a jerk for slow rolling till the block step, but I'm still new to burn, and I wasn't fully processing the amount of extra damage I was just casually getting off of that 2-mana 2/1 there, the Archer. The deck seems capable of beating at least one deck that is pretty darn good. The Monument deck is pretty darn good, and this Imminent Doom deck executed on its burn strategy pretty well, even for a 5-tick budget deck. So you'll see me play some more of that. That is budget Imminent Doom burn. And we'll get back at it with some more games a little bit later on.